Welcome back to the Padlong Codes YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to look at how you can go about making an Excel gauge chart using the Python programming language, and we'll be working in google-colab. So this is sort of the end result that we're going to be looking for, a gauge chart with just a simple line chart to accompany it, just to give the user some more background on what the gauge chart is representing. And to get started, I like to do all my Python tutorials in google-colab. If you've never used google-colab before, it's as simple as Googling Colab in your using Chrome, and just go into this Jupyter notebook. As long as you have a Google account, you can sign in, make your own notebook, and get right to work in Python. So yeah, here I am in my Jupyter notebook and google-colab. I've already got some notes in here about what I'm going to do, and also linked to the XLSX-Writer documentation, which have a good example. Which has a good example of a gauge chart. Just a basic gauge chart. I'm going a little bit more in depth with this example. So hopefully it gives you a bit more of an idea. I'm going to use data from the Federal Reserve Economic Database using the Pandas Data Reader module. And I'm going to be using the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. You can Google that. So I'm having a little trouble finding the page. So now I'm on the Fred website. Just to give you an idea of what this is, I think I've spelled it wrong. Here we go. University of Michigan. Cool. Yeah, Consumer Sentiment Index. And you can kind of see how it changes through time. When there's a big recession, it goes down quite a lot. As you can see during the financial crisis circa 2009, and more recently in the past couple of years in 2020 or so. And so this is the data we'll be using. So back in my Jupyter notebook on google-colab, I've just imported these three libraries. It's just Pandas Datetime and Pandas Data Reader. Now I'm just going to, read in that I'm calling my DataFrame Cent, just for University of Michigan Sentiment. The same short name that you use in the when you're using the Pandas Data Reader library. And the engine we select Fred. It used to be that you could select Yahoo was really good for sort of stock data, or Quandel is still, I think, quite good, and there's a Quandel Python library, but you can also use Pandas Data Reader for Quandel, but it's often changing. A lot of these APIs limit how much you can use. Fred doesn't, so it's quite useful for economic data. If you guys are unfamiliar with it, it's a pretty useful library. It's a pretty useful API, and the Pandas Data Reader library reads straight into that just very easily without much difficulty. That first line 5, is all you need. And I also, the final argument on it is just a datetime object for when I want the data to start from. You can also do an end argument. If you look on the Pandas Data Reader documentation, you can get more information on that. So I'm just going to make a couple of columns extra in my data set. I'm going to make a percentage column. So we'll get a percentage of what the highest point was. So and this will come into play on our gauge chart when we actually get to making it. the farthest point on our gauge will be 100, and whatever month we're in will be some percentage of that, which will use our gauge to bear where we're at, in terms of reaching 100. And I'm just going to print the data frame, just using the dot tail just to get the end. I'm also going to make a couple of I'm just going to make these objects of the date, which is just going to be like the month of the last row in the data frame, plus the year of the last row in the data frame. So we just print that out. So if you run this program, we run the script like a year from now, it'll give you whatever dates in the, it's data driven. So whatever dates in the data frame. When I'm running this, I think the latest data I have now is it's going to be March 2021. Although I have some kind of an error. Spelled iLock wrong. So, and then now there's something else. I don't need the index for that. Sorry. So I was using the index because the index is the date in the pandas data frame, the pandas data reader data frame. Just if that makes a bit more sense as to why I was referencing the index in the first, the current date one. So I'm just going to put a note up here about what I'm doing. So this is I'm just kind of getting my data for the chart. And now let's get around to actually making the chart. So now I'm all set. So you have to install the XLSX writer library. So just using pip install XLSX writer and import XLSX writer. I'm going to use pandas 2 in here, but I've already imported that above. So because the step above, you need to run that first. I can't jump into this session and just run this section down here. I need to get the data in first. Could have done it all in one block, but I think it just makes more sense to divide it up in this way. Anyway, so making the workbook object, worksheet object here, and I'm kind of following exactly along with what the XLSX writer documentation does. Sometimes I'll do this in pandas where you're really using XLSX writer, but I'm just using XLSX writer in this example. And so I'm going to make two charts here because there isn't really a way to make a gauge chart in Excel. It's a combination of a donut and a pie chart. So that's why there's those two. There's that the chart donut and the chart pie, where I'm using the add chart method to make two different charts. And then I'm also going to combine them later on using the combine chart method. So here I'm going to use add series to flesh out what's going in the and I'm going to use it in the donut chart, and then I'm also going to use it in the pie chart. I'm going to sort of flesh out what's in here. Here I'm looking at the markers on the donut chart, if that makes sense. I'm going to sum them to 360. Where if you do the math on that, I'm going to do 5 different points. So if you do the math on that, you see I have 36, 36, 36, 36, and 180. The first 5 are going to be on using degrees. Are going to be your different colors on your gauge. So and then the 180 is just going to be blank. Because it's a donut chart. It goes in a 360, but you're just not going to be using the bottom. Sorry, what do you call it? The bottom 180 degrees. So that's why I've got that as fill none equals none is true. And then I'm going to go through the different colors. It's not... I'm just doing an example, so this may not be the best grouping of these different things based on the data. That's kind of a decision for sort of someone who knows the data a little bit better than I do. I'm just giving an example. But yeah, I've spread them equally, going from red, orange, yellow, lime, and green. So you've got the different colors representing where your gauge is at on your gauge chart. So if that makes sense. And yeah, just have to use the set rotation to make sure it's in the right, make sure it's rotated to the right place. And I'm going to have to do this with the pie chart too. And yeah, I'm just going to make sure that, get rid of the border as well. And legend, just because they're kind of going to conflict with, using the combination of the two charts. It's not going to work out too well if I have a border on there. So just, it's about all there is to say about that. And yeah, I'm just going to, this is the easiest way in XLSX Writer to get rid of the legend, as the automatic legend. So just using the set legend method, none is true. So now it's time for moving on to the pie chart, where we're going to put the data that drives the needle. And earlier on, when I did some of the preliminary work with the data, I made a current value. I made a current value object and a current date, and I think I'm kind of going to use them in this section. To drive what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, I'm going to make a point A and a point B. And so point A and point C, and there's really a point B, but it's just always going to be 1. You could change it based on the thickness of the needle you want to use. So point A is going to be the value, some other side of the needle, and point C is going to be the other side of the needle, and the three of them are going to sum to 180. And I'm going to basing that off what is the current value. And so point A and point C are going to be unfilled, and then point B, which is 1, is going to be is going to be black, and so it represents the needle. And I'm also gonna, just based on and this is where I differ a fair bit from the example in the XLSX Writer docs, I kind of do some customization here, so I get the value, so the user can see what it's pointing to. In the XLSX Writer, they do, there's just so many examples, but their example for the gauge chart is a bit more bare bones. And this one, I'm sort of showing you how you can customize it so the user can see the value, and in many ways. Also, I'm adding on an extra line chart at the end. That's not really part of the topic of this video, but it just gives a bit more context to the gauge chart. And so yeah, here I'm putting in the values I talked about above. Obviously, again, the middle one is 1. You could change it, that would alter the math a little bit too, for calculating point A and point C. So yeah, and then I have to, for point A and point C, I'm going to have to say, don't want to fill them. But for the middle one, I want to make it black. So that's my needle, basically, on the gauge chart. Or on the pie chart, which is combined with the donut chart is the gauge chart. So yeah, and then I'm also going to have to put in my custom labels that I made up there. So that gives a bit more context to just to the user. It's a bit more visually appealing. I haven't gone overboard with this. You could do a lot more. I'm just giving that and a title. We'll get to that down the line. You could do more. But yeah, it's similar to other charts in XLSX Writer. If you've had experience or you're using pandas with using the XLSX Writer engine option, you can do these data labels and you can customize it quite a bit. And I'm going to do that just to make the fill color yellow and the and red on the border, just so it looks a bit more visually appealing. And you have to set the rotation again with the pie chart, and now I'm going to combine the two charts, the pie and the donut chart, to make our gauge chart. So I'm trying to keep good notes here, and something I haven't mentioned already is that link to all the code used in this video is in the description below. And I also linked to a better line chart tutorial, because I'm going to do a line chart here in a second. But it's bare bones. It's just to give a bit more context to the gauge chart. And here again, I'm using the current date that I made earlier, which is data driven. So in my example, since this data goes as of May 2021, goes through March 2021, it's going to say University of Michigan Sentiment Index through March 2021. So yeah, like I said, I'm adding a line chart just for some more context for the user. It's, a gauge chart is something that's really good for sort of a dashboard, or in conjunction with some other chart. And in this case, I think a line chart makes a lot of sense, just to give you that sort of full history, and then you've got the snapshot of what's happening this month in the gauge chart. So that's kind of why I'm adding in this line chart. Again, in the XLSX Writer docs, they just do a gauge chart, which is fine. But I think, from a visual standpoint, it's better to have a line chart. Again, I've gone very bare bones with the line chart. It's basic. It's not the subject of this video. I have another one where I've done more in-depth line charts, and a combined chart where I've used a line and a bar chart, a column chart and a line chart, and that is also linked in the description below. So yeah, if you wanted to, work this for your own data, then then those videos would be more appropriate. To make your line chart a little bit better. Again, something I didn't mention is that the XLSX date column I made at the beginning is to give you a native Excel date, instead of a Python datetime object. So yeah, I did calculations there at the start of this video. I was just typing it and didn't really mention it, but that's what that column is doing. So yeah, now when I did the date format up here, hopefully that makes more sense. I didn't explain that very well. But when you see the final output, you'll see, or if you run it yourself, you'll see the that date time format in Excel. Sorry, that Excel date format. Works quite nicely. So Excel treats it like a date rather than a string, which it would if I didn't do that, or a number if I just left it as a Python datetime object, or I could make it as a string. Again, Excel probably won't recognize that, but I've given it I've given it the Excel number, and then I've done use the add format method in with XLSX Writer. So now I'm ready to run this, and hopefully it runs with no problem, which it didn't. I think I've used. I'm trying to see what the problem is here. Done something wrong here. It's a great thing about Jupyter Notebook. Usually tips you off pretty well, and even if you're just running a Python script, traceback gives you a good idea. I think trying to see. Maybe. I think I'm using an uppercase S when I should be using a lowercase s. There you go. Yeah. So, and same thing here. So, yes. So that ran fine on the, and this will be the final code I put on the in the description below, which is saved at GitHub. So this is kind of the, looks like there was a problem. Yeah. So, I did something wrong in my calculations. That number was about 100 too high. So I'm trying to think of the best way to fix this with the current value. And when the value is too high like that, it's just kind of a teachable thing. I threw off the needle because the needle didn't even show up in my gauge chart. So if I've changed the current value now, this should work much better this time. So there we go. So we got our needle, perfect. And there's that line chart, and you see those Excel dates looking nice in the line chart. And that line chart, really, it's a bare bones example. You can do a much better one. I haven't even done the legend properly. So you can flesh that out. Again, I've got a link in the description below to a line chart video and a combined chart where I did much more professional sort of line charts by themselves. But I'm just trying to add context. Yeah, I didn't put headers for the data either. So that's kind of, it's not the greatest line chart, but the gauge chart's looking all nice. And just the way we want it. Again, could have spaced out the colors a little differently. Maybe they're not super appropriate for the data, but I think you get an idea of how to do a gauge chart and suit it to your data. So again, there's a lot that can be done to sort of improve upon this chart, but this is really a good starting point for a dashboard in Excel. And hopefully throughout the code, just doing the extra customization it gives you sort of a sense of how you can customize this towards your own data. And hopefully that's, it's a valuable example. Again, just to sum up, we made a gauge chart, and all the code is in the description below. Thanks again for watching the video.